Good morning. Today we will look at the biography of Robert Frost, whose poem Birches is prescribed for the students of BA Part 3 English Literature, Paper 1. The biography of Robert Frost. His dates are he was born in the year 1874 and he died in 1963. Robert Frost was an American poet who depicted realistic New England life through language and situations familiar to the common man. He won 4 Pulitzer Prizes for his work and spoke at John F. Kennedy's 1961 inauguration. Who was Robert Frost? Robert Frost was an American poet and winner of 4 Pulitzer Prizes. Famous works include Fire and Ice, Mending Wall, Birches, Out Out, Nothing Gold Can Stay, and Home Burial. His 1916 poem, The Road Not Taken, is often read at graduation ceremonies across the United States. As a special guest at President John F. Kennedy's inauguration, Frost became a poetic force and the unofficial poet laureate of the United States. Frost spent his first 40 years as an unknown. He exploded on the scene after returning from England at the beginning of World War I. He died of complications from prostate surgery on January 29, 1963. Early years. Frost was born on March 26, 1874, in San Francisco, California. He spent the first 11 years of his life there until his journalist father, William Prescott Frost, Jr., died of tuberculosis. Following his father's passing, Frost moved with his mother and sister, Jeannie, to the town of Lawrence, Massachusetts. They moved in with his grandparents, and Frost attended Lawrence High School. After high school, Frost attended Dartmouth College for several months, returning home to work a slew of unfulfilling jobs. Beginning in 1897, Frost attended Harvard University, but had to drop out after 2 years due to health concerns. He returned to Lawrence to join his wife. In 1900, Frost moved with his wife and children to a farm in New Hampshire, a property that Frost's grandfather had purchased for them, and they attempted to make a life on it for the next 12 years. Though it was a fruitful time for Frost's writing, it was a difficult period in his personal life as 2 of his young children died. During this time, Frost and Eleanor, that is his wife, attempted several endeavors, including poultry farming, all of which were fairly unsuccessful. Despite such challenges, it was during this time that Frost acclimated himself to rural life. In fact, he grew to depict it quite well and began setting many of his poems in the countryside. Robert Frost, born on March 26, 1874 in San Francisco, where his father, William Prescott Frost Jr., and his mother, Isabel Moody, had moved from Pennsylvania shortly after marrying. After the death of his father from tuberculosis, when Frost was 11 years old, he moved with his mother and sister Jeannie, who was 2 years younger, to Lawrence, Massachusetts. He became interested in reading and writing poetry during his high school years in Lawrence, enrolled at Dartmouth College in Hanover, New Hampshire in 1892, and later at Harvard University in Boston, though he never earned a formal college degree. Frost drifted through a string of occupations after leaving school, working as a teacher, cobbler, and editor of the Lawrence Sentinel. His first published poem, My Butterfly, appeared on November 8, 1894, in the New York newspaper The Independent. In 1895, Frost married Eleanor Miriam White, whom he had shared valedictorian honors with in high school and who was a major inspiration for his poetry until her death in 1938. The couple moved to England in 1912 after they tried and failed at farming in New Hampshire. It was abroad that Frost met and was influenced by such contemporary British poets as Edward Thomas, Rupert Brooke, and Robert Graves. While in England, Frost also established a friendship with the poet Ezra Pound, who helped to promote and publish his work. By the time Frost returned to the United States in 1915, his reputation was established. By the 1920s, he was the most celebrated poet in America. And with each new book, including New Hampshire, published by Henry Holt and Company in 1923, A Further Range, again Henry Holt and Company, 1936, Steeple Bush, same company's publication, and In the Clearing in Holt, Reinhardt and Winston, 1962. His fame and honors, including 4 Pulitzer Prizes, increased. Frost served as a consultant in poetry to the Library of Congress from 1958 to 1959. In 1962, he was presented the Congressional Gold Medal. Though his work is principally associated with the life and landscape of New England, and though he was a poet of traditional verse forms and metrics who remained steadfastly aloof from the poetic movements and fashions of his time, Frost is anything but merely a regional poet. The author of searching and often dark meditations on universal themes, he is a quintessentially modern poet in his adherence to language as it is actually spoken, in the psychological complexity of his portraits, and in the degree to which his work is infused with layers of ambiguity and irony. In 1970, in a 1970 review of the poetry of Robert Frost, the poet Daniel Hoffman describes Frost's early work and commented on Frost's career as the American bard. He became a national celebrity, a nearly official poet laureate, and a great performer in the tradition of that earlier master of the literary vernacular, that is Mark Twain. President John F. Kennedy, at whose inauguration Frost delivered a poem, said of the poet, "He has bequeathed his nation a body of imperishable verse from which Americans will forever gain and understand. When power corrupts, poetry cleanses." Robert Frost lived and taught for many years in Massachusetts and Vermont and died in Boston on January 29th, 1963. This is a very brief biography of Robert Frost. In the next session, we will look at the poem Birches by Frost in detail. Thank you.